Hello there, everyone. Your friendly librarian here, and welcome to day 4 of Banned Books Week. What do you imagine when you think of a librarian? I wonder if some of you picture maybe an older lady about this tall, wears her glasses like this, in a cardigan, even when it's 85 degrees out, says shh, 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 right? Or maybe by now, your idea of a librarian is maybe a younger fellow with a beard and a really corny sense of humor. I'm guessing many of you do not think of a rebel or a freedom fighter when you think of a librarian, and yet so many librarians have risked real danger in the course of their job over the years and depending where they were. Whether it was braving the elements on horseback to bring books to those who didn't have any, whether it's librarians who worked in prisons or concentration camps and brought hope to those who had none, or those who circulated real banned books. And I'm not just talking about the way we talk about it here in the United States, banned, challenged books. I'm talking about in places like where the Taliban ruled, in Soviet Russia, Nazi Germany, where it was illegal to circulate books and certain ideas, and having those books, you could be imprisoned and even killed. And yet, librarians still found a way to keep those books alive and get the message out. Well, today we are going to look at one of our own homegrown heroes. You may or may not have heard of them, but they're called the Connecticut Four, and I'm going to tell you their story right now. Connecticut Four was a group of librarians who were unwittingly thrust into the national spotlight and made history. The main player in this story is George Christian, who's supported by Janet Nozick, Peter Chase, and Barbara Bailey. Who were they? They were librarians serving on the board of directors for Library Connection in Windsor. In 2006, they made national headlines and scored what many consider a victory for civil liberty. But to understand how they accomplished that, we need a quick history refresher. We all know that on September 11th, 2001, the World Trade Center was attacked in what was the largest terrorist attack on U.S. soil in U.S. history. Shortly after, the Bush administration passed a law known as the Patriot Act with overwhelming bipartisan support from Congress. The Patriot Act was passed as a measure to combat terrorism. What it did was reduce the amount of judicial oversight required for law enforcement to subpoena information. Previously, police officers, if they wanted to search someone or a car or a residence or acquire certain documents and information, they would need a warrant signed by a judge before that they conducted that search. And in order to do that, they would have to provide evidence that gave reasonable suspicion of a crime that justified the search. This also impacted how law enforcement was able to conduct wiretapping and what materials could be requested in subpoenas. So, whereas wiretapping, which is spying through a phone or a bug in a room, now is expanded to include emails, browsing history, and other electronic records. And this also could be done without a judge's approval beforehand, previously was required. Many in the FBI and law enforcement communities celebrated the passage of the Patriot Act. They saw it as a tool that allowed them to follow up on suspected terrorists and other criminals much faster without running into the red tape of bureaucracy, which was particularly important in time sensitive investigations. However, it was also met with a lot of pushback from activist groups who saw the Patriot Act as a violation of the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, which protects American citizens from unlawful searches and seizures. Opponents of the Patriot Act contend that it gave police officers the ability to spy on or search any ordinary citizen without a legitimate reason. Now, national security letters have been used since 1970. They are FBI subpoenas for records on suspected foreign agents. In the Patriot Act, specifically Section 505, it changes the nature of these national security letters. Specifically, it removed the requirement that targets of these subpoenas be accused of a crime. Therefore, as long as FBI agents said that it was relevant to an open investigation, they could get records on people who were not accused of doing anything wrong. It also removed the requirement for a court order to issue these subpoenas. Field agents had broad power to issue these subpoenas, sometimes with the justification coming after the search was conducted. It also added a gag order preventing anyone who received an NSL from discussing it, even mentioning that they got it, and they could not even discuss it with their lawyer. This brings us back to the Connecticut Four. In 2006, the Library Connection in Windsor received one of these national security letters demanding information on all patrons who had used their public computers in the library on a certain day within a certain time frame. George Christian and the rest of the board saw this as a violation of their patrons' privacy and civil rights, and therefore they refused to comply with the order. This led to a 2006 court case. The librarians refused to comply with the national security letter subpoena. They fought it in court as anonymous plaintiffs because of the gag order. They were not allowed to talk about why they were suing, who they were, or what their case was. The American Civil Liberties Union supported them in this case. Eventually, the prosecutors dropped the case before it was fully litigated. The judge removed the gag order. It was after that that the Connecticut Four were able to identify themselves and speak publicly about their concerns about the Patriot Act and the use of these national security letters to obtain private information, even on people who were not committing crimes. They saw this having a profound impact on people's intellectual freedom that would curb them from searching freely based on their interests because of concern about being spied on and accused of crimes. So, the impact that this case had on the Patriot Act, well, they didn't stop it entirely. The Patriot Act was renewed in 2006. However, there were some changes. Those who received a national security letter are now allowed to consult a lawyer and to challenge it in court. The judge determines that it was not probable cause to request that information, and it could be blocked. It also exempted libraries from national security letters. Despite these small victories, the Connecticut Four stated publicly that they saw it as a loss overall because the Patriot Act was renewed, and it does remain in effect to this day. However, as you can see in this editorial cartoon from the Hartford Courant, those who saw the Patriot Act as an abuse of power and government overreach saw the Connecticut Four as heroes who stood up for their patrons' rights and the U.S. Constitution against enormous pressure.
All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that story and took away at least a few interesting tidbits. For me, that story is a source of inspiration, a reminder that when we celebrate Banned Books Week, it's not just about reminding you of your freedom to read and your freedom of expression and how important it is for you to take advantage of that because not everybody has it. It's also a reminder to those who work in libraries or other information centers that we are following in the footsteps of a long, ancient tradition, a global tradition of spreading ideas and information. And from time to time, it will be our responsibility to stand up for the free exchange of ideas, even against enormous pressure. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow for our conclusion of Banned Books Week. Today I'm saying peace out.